Greetings and welcome to another installment from the Patchwork Productionz Learn to Crochet for Beginners series. In this video, you will learn about the slipknot, tension, chaining, and the foundation chain. For those of you who are new to my channel, my name is Stitch, and Patchwork Productionz is all about learning and doing crochet. So make sure you subscribe so you never miss another installment. Without further ado, let's get started. So for this tutorial, I'm going to be using some regular weight 4 or medium weight yarn. You can see here on the label, weight 4, also known as worsted weight. And the recommended hook size that they give is a US 10. And so I will also be using a US 10, also known as a J10 crochet hook, size 5.75 millimeter hook. And now if you don't know what any of this means or what it is, you'll see a YouTube card right somewhere up here for my previous tutorial video where I explain yarn weights, hook sizes, and what's on the label. So I encourage you to check that out after this video. Today we'll be learning about the slipknot, yarn tension, and how to make a foundation chain. For the slipknot, it's basically the beginning of any crochet project. Just about every project that you'll make starts with a slipknot. Some of them don't, but to make a slipknot, what I do is I take my yarns, this is the end of my yarn, and I just make a loop like this. So you can see that in the yarn in this hand is under the yarn in this hand, and then with my hands in between this loop, I'm just going to grab this end of the yarn and pull it through. So I know it's a little hard to see, so I'll demonstrate again a little closer. So basically, this is the end of my yarn, and I'm going to make a loop. So now this yarn is under this yarn, and then I'm going to pull this yarn through. So it'll look something like this. See how this yarn is through here? So now when I pull on this, it creates a knot. And the reason why it's called a slip knot is because when I put my hook in here and pull on this end of the yarn, it slips and it slides down and locks onto the loop. And if I pull this end of the yarn, it comes loose. And what's great about this is that when I pull on both ends of the yarn, it undoes itself and the knot isn't there and we start all over again. And so that is a slip knot. Now, one of the great things about crochet in general is that you'll learn different techniques and methods for how to do something, but there almost isn't a right and wrong way. In the case of a slip knot, there is a wrong way. If you tie it and then pull the tail end through, it's the wrong kind of a slip knot. And then your knot is left in here, and it pulled the wrong end out, and so you have to make sure that when you make your slip knot, it's this side of the yarn that you pull through. I have seen people make slip knots where they'll wrap it twice around their finger and kind of pull the yarn through. I don't know how to do this method, but whichever method works better for you, this is just the way that I know. And now to identify some things here, this end of the yarn is what's called the tail end. And whatever size you make that tail end after you've made your knot, it should remain that size if you've done the knot correctly. This side of the yarn, which comes straight from the ball, this is what's called the working end or the working yarn. And so this is what your projects will use to, grow in size, but this should remain the same. So you don't work with this in the sense of crocheting with it. So now that we've made our loop, we can now learn about tension. Tension is critical in crochet because it helps your projects, keep a uniform size, helps you to work more efficiently, just makes this a more enjoyable process. And so two factors in tension: loop tension and the tension of the working yarn in your hand. So for the working yarn in your hand, people, again, it's just various techniques, whichever one is more comfortable for you. But people do different ways. I've seen it where people just pinch the yarn between their two fingers like this. I've seen it where they just do one loop around here. This is the way that I personally do my yarn tension. So I'll take my hand, I'll put the yarn around these two fingers and twice around my index finger, and that's my yarn tension. And you don't want it so that it's too tight and you can't pull it through, but you don't want it too floppity, so it just flies through, but it should be able to move if you want it to. And then when you put your yarn here, you want to make sure that the tension here isn't too tight and that it isn't too loose, because this is the yarn that you have to work with. And if it's too tight, it'll be slow, it'll be hard. If it's too loose, it'll just be annoying to try to do anything. And if you get it right, you'll also have to hold the loop here properly. So once you have this kind of form or position, this shouldn't be too tight or too loose, and it should be able to pull if you need to. And you don't want to hold the loop too close because you have to go in and out of that loop, and so it's kind of hard if you're too close. But you don't want it too far away because then it just kind of dangles and you don't see my loop is moving wherever it wants. So this is kind of like a control measure. And once you get the proper tension, it'll help you to have, neater projects. It'll be easier to crochet. But to practice tension, one of the best ways we can do it is by making chains. So what the foundation chain is basically, if I'm starting something like a pot mat, let's just say a little square, the foundation chain is literally the foundation of my project. That's what I make before I start, single crocheting into the chains to build on my project. And so to make a chain, we're going to yarn over and draw a loop. Now, what does that all mean? Yarn over is probably one of the most used instructions in crochet. And so to demonstrate what yarn over is, it's literally the yarn over the hook. Now, you want to be careful with this. You don't want to do this. You don't want, that's a different instruction, and that's not the proper yarn over. You'd only do that unless directed by the project. So to yarn over, always remember that the hook comes to you and under, and the yarn comes to you and over. So it's always, let's just do this closer so you can see, always like this. This is yarn over. And then to draw a loop, watch carefully, to draw a loop, you've got to pull that yarn through the loop. So you can see that there's a loop here, and when I draw that yarn, I twist my hook to make sure that the yarn stays on the hook, and now I draw the loop through. Now, something that's important to also make crocheting easier is how you hold your hook. Because if I wasn't holding this right, it would be much harder to do that twisting and drawing the loop. So you'll notice here this flat piece of the crochet hook. It's called the finger hold. And if you want to know the full anatomy of the crochet hook, again, in my previous tutorial video, the YouTube card there, you can watch the video to see the full anatomy of the hook. But this here's the finger hold. And it's important to have your index finger and your thumb holding that. It gives you better mobility with being able to twist it, and then the handle of the crochet hook can then be a balancing measure so that it's not just wherever it wants to be. They recommend to hold it much like a pencil. I hold my hook like this. Whatever is comfortable for you, but remember that this is what the finger hold is for. And then you can hold it and move it around a lot more easily. And so again, I'll show you how to do a chain. Yarn over, draw a loop. And as you're chaining, you may need to adjust your tension. It happens sometimes. And so you may need to redo your hand tension, or if you make enough chains, you may need to move your hand from being down here to closer to the hook so that you can keep that control and tension. Now, I will admit, I tend to make my chains and stitches on the tighter side. And what's important is that if you make them too tight, it can be really hard to work in them later, and your project won't be uniform in shape. And so chaining is a great way to practice making the right tension and keeping your stitches more uniform. Now, when you're beginning crochet, it could be helpful for you to use a larger hook. I'm using the recommended hook size for this yarn, which is a J10, but you could use something more like a K10 and a half. This could be easier for you to use because it's larger and it'll help you to keep stitches that aren't too tight. Because let's say I use an H hook, it may be a little bit more difficult to keep that uniform size because it's going to make a tighter stitch because it's a smaller hook. So you may want to use a larger hook, and we can just see what that looks like here. Gonna do another chain, except we're using a K10 and a half hook. So again, we're going to yarn over, and let's do it close so that you can see. Gonna yarn over, draw a loop. Yarn over, draw a loop. And it's a little hard to notice, but it does make a larger stitch just because it's a larger size. Now, it's not that much larger than the J hook. They're pretty close in size, but if I was doing stitches with the H hook and then I switched to this one, you would notice the difference. Now, how do I count these stitches? How do I know how many stitches I've made so far? To count your stitches, one thing that it's going to be important to remember is that the slip knot that you made down here, this knot right here, and this loop are not counted as a chain. So whatever loop is on your hook, that loop is not counted as a chain, and the knot that you made is not either. And so if we want to count them, we can see that a chain kind of looks like a V. See this this kind of V shape right here, so one side. That's one chain, and at the back of the chain you'll notice this bump. That's kind of how all the chains look. It's always going to look like these V's and these bumps. And so to count them, we can just count the little V's and we'll know how many chains we have. So starting with this chain right here at the bottom, we have 1, we have 2, we have 3, we have 4, we have 5, we have 6, we have 7, we have 8. So here I've done 8 chains, and we can tell by these little V's, and the loop on the hook does not count as a chain. And so if I chain another one, see, now that's 9. And again, if we count them, you see the little V's. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And so here we can see that we have 9 chains on our that we've made. And we can keep chaining. Let's just practice again. Yarn over, draw a loop. And that's 1 chain. Yarn over, draw a loop. And as we are chaining, we can adjust the size of our chain, and this is all a part of tension. And as long as we keep good tension, we can keep a consistent size with our chains. And so chaining is a great way to practice keeping a more consistent size. You can see here that this is not perfectly consistent. You can see various size changes, of course, with the few chains that I did with the size K, and just with the fact that it takes practice to get, consistent chain sizes. And this is what would be called a foundation chain, because it would be the foundation of whatever pot mat, square, or whatever the different projects are that start with a foundation chain. When working in the row, this is the foundation of it. If you want to think of this as a house, this is the beginning of whatever the project is you're starting. And then when you continue, you're going to work into whichever one of these loops with whatever stitch. Let's say you're doing a single crochet, and begin your project. And so in the next tutorial video, we're going to actually learn how to do the single crochet and learn how to build off of this foundation chain. For now, you've learned how to make a slip knot, how to have proper tension, how to hold your hook, and how to make chains. So I encourage you to practice chaining so that not only you understand, how to yarn over, draw that loop, but also so that you can practice getting more even stitches, not too tight, not too loose, and so that your chains look more uniform. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this tutorial and want to learn more about crochet, be sure to hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss another video. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up, and also share this video with your friends and family or on social media. And feel free to leave a comment down below. If you have any questions or suggestions or any feedback, I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, catch you later.